Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed.
Police had to send an officer to a church this Easter weekend where the leader of the gathering reportedly shouted at the health inspector.
Yes, what about it?
We're being destroyed. People are being destroyed and they're seeking help. They're coming to a place where they think that there is some answers.
This is not an event. This is not your picnic in the neighborhood for the fun of it. We are providing necessities of life to those that you and your bosses refuse to provide.
And we're shutting it down and arresting people for simply being humans and trying to do help.
The doors are open. Anyone is welcome to come in. And our government right now is with Satan. Our government has given their soul to the demons, to Satan. Amen. For a bowl of soup, for comfort, I don't know what they're doing. I have a choice. I can say okay, take them, or I can resist. I've chosen to resist.
Received confirmation that after leaving worship today, Pastor Artur Pawlowski was pulled over on his way home and arrested. A pastor in Alberta for the second time has been arrested simply for preaching.
Don't taser me, kill me.
That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable by any standards. And I always say to people, you don't have to like me. Just look what is going on.
They dragged me, they put me like a piece of meat behind a police vehicle, and I don't think they've done it legally. I think this was unlawful arrest. We had never a chance to examine the court order.
Look what's going on. Open your eyes, open your ears and see what's really going on here.
Someone set our property on fire. Someone wants us dead.
And I'm thinking, my God, how evil you have to become.
After returning from a long speaking engagement, authorities closed in and took him into custody before he could even say hello to his family. We have footage of that troubling arrest here for you now.
How wicked in your heart that you would send someone to rot in jail for the rest of my life on this side of eternity for feeding the poor and for opening a church. That's not just a job, that's a lifestyle. As a pastor, as a shepherd, I have to be with my people. I have to be with the people that are coming, the people that are trusting me, the people that have been depressed, suicidal, and now their hope is being restored and they need a leader. They need their shepherds to be with them. That's where I belong. Every pastor belongs with his people.
Warning, censorship.
The entire world knows the now infamous steps upon which Pastor Artur Pawlowski was standing when he said, "Get out, get out." But the story of Pastor Artur Pawlowski and his conflict with Calgary authorities in reality started here when he was given a ticket for daring to feed the homeless. He then became our very first Fight the Fines case.
We started this Fight the Fines project back in April. Our first case was a Christian pastor named Artur Pawlowski, who was fined $1,200 for literally feeding the homeless. What kind of cop does that? Don't pay these crazy tickets. Let us hire lawyers for you to handle the tickets, to handle the stress. I predict many of these will be dropped without even a hearing.
The legal costs associated with taking a principled stance can be daunting, so we created SaveArtur.com in order to crowdfund and cover all of Pastor Artur's legal fees. Sarah Miller of JSS Barristers has been fighting tirelessly for Artur at no cost to him, thanks to your generous donations.
That is not the argument that we're having today or this week in court. The argument is whether or not the detention itself and what the police did in effecting that detention, if that was constitutional. And so my submission in court was it wasn't.
Since that time, Pastor Artur Pawlowski has been targeted with 2 dramatic arrests. Once roadside, where a crew pulled him from his vehicle and took him into custody, and most recently at the airport when he was taken into custody upon his return to Canada. Ever since Pastor Artur Pawlowski became the center of a firestorm of international and local attention for his acts of defiance, Rebel News has been there by his side. Following the story, our own intrepid videographer K2 spent the night in his church. No one has been there by his side like us. And we want you to have an opportunity to look back on his story and get to know the man behind the legend.
But we're not going to give more attention to the hyenas. We eat hyenas for breakfast.
Because of our unrelenting and committed focus to telling this story like nobody else, we have garnered unique insights into the story of Pastor Artur Pawlowski, and we have come to learn that he is not just a significant figure, but a truly historical one. So now join us as we take a look back at the events that led up to the upcoming court date on October 13th that may see an Alberta pastor sent to prison.
I don't care what you have to say. Out! Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Out! Out! Gestapo is not allowed here! Well, it's just one word. Corruption, and corruption at the highest levels.
This is the hypocrisy of this city. This is the hypocrisy of our wonderful, fearless leaders. Where is Nahat Nemshi, the mayor of this city?
Well, as you know, we escaped communism. We came to Canada for one purpose, not for bread, but for freedom. And we were promised that we will get that freedom, that we will not be hunted down like common criminals just because we are Christians. You see, growing up under communism, that's exactly what the communists were doing. The government wanted to be God, and anyone that dared to worship a real God, not the government, was hunted down and persecuted. So when we came here, we were promised that this is not going to be a repetition of history. However, you know and I know, and now millions of people around the world, they all know that there is a repetition of history. Those people who want to be tyrants are stripping our rights away left and right and subduing us into bowing and worshiping them. I just simply cannot do that.
The problem is Canada has become communist, and they're using you guys as their strong arm, and I think that's atrocious. Okay.
If you're watching this video, that means I've also been arrested. So this is Peter Eichert. I was the associate pastor of the Cave of Adullam and lead volunteer for Street Church for a large number of years. I was arrested. I was charged criminally for keeping the church open, for holding a church service, for being outside to try and accommodate, our government's restrictions on church as much as possible. And so it's impacted myself and my family greatly, absolutely.
Give me a moment to say hi to my children, to hug my wife. That's sick.
So my name is Marzena Pawlowski, and relationship, I'm his wife.
It's really very, very hard work before we come here. So it's not that I'm complaining, I'm just letting you know it's not easy.
Yes, we were, as a family, and me personally, we were affected by my husband persecuted by government on so many levels. Rejection by community, by other church members. Not everybody understands what's going on. Some people think still that government is always right, and of course rejection, finances. As a family, yes, we were affected greatly. All those years they thought we dropped from the sky on our heads, But not until recently, since COVID, people start to open their eyes. But unfortunately, I think this is a little bit too late.
Everything has to have the official okay from the Canadian Communist Party.
My name is Nathaniel Pawlowski. I am the son of Artur Pawlowski.
Well, when your dad's being thrown in jail, handcuffed, and treated this way, I mean, it takes a toll, obviously.
I want to show and support my fellow freedom fighters, and I want to show my discontent to the government of what they're doing and show them how many people are not okay with this.
I mean, I should be affected in a more profound way, but I've honestly been, tragically, I've become used to this, because since 2005, since I was 5-6 years old, my dad has been treated like this by the government, by the city of Calgary, the government of Alberta, and the government of Canada. He was first arrested for reading the Bible. I mean, I kind of grew up experiencing the corruption of the government and the treatment of pastors this way.
And what they did is they break you. They take everything from you. They take your soul and they want to destroy you.
My name is David Pawlowski. I am his brother. Well, the last arrest, it was the 7th one as a Christian. It was unlawful. The criminals in badges that were ordered to do this broke federal laws of Canada. And all of a sudden, the people that should uphold the law the most, which is the police, the politicians, the judges, the prosecutors, etc., all of a sudden, they are breaking every federal law in a book, and nobody's holding them accountable. So shame on them. They send a anti-terrorist group to arrest 2 preachers that were coming from their duty of preaching. It's a beginning of a totalitarian state.
The sun is rising in Alberta. This is our time, the start of an exciting recovery for our province, of an Alberta Renaissance. And people of faith are returning to their congregations, worshiping and fellowshipping together.
Just received confirmation that after leaving worship today, Pastor Artur Pawlowski was pulled over on his way home and arrested. A pastor in Alberta for the 2nd time has been arrested simply for preaching. I just got off the line with our videographer K2, who was on the scene, and he told me it was the hardest thing he has ever seen. The family of Pastor Tim Stevens was weeping as he was hauled away in cuffs like some common criminal. Pastor Tim was once again taken into custody. Numerous police vehicles arrived and put him in a car, taking him away from his families. It was an extremely emotional and harrowing ordeal, and we were there to capture it as it happened. I'm going to let you go now to the footage of his arrest.
You guys looked up to goodbye. Not too close, not too close. I hope that is put on a billboard truck and it is driven around every single Jason Kenney campaign event forever. I hope those images hang like a millstone around his neck forever. I wonder if Jason Kenney can hear the shrieking and sobbing of Tim and Raquel's frightened children all the way up there in Sky Palace. And boy, I get it. I get it now. You've got to put down a lot of Jameson to be able to sleep at night when you're the man responsible for what happened.
that at some points in that evening we were not all distanced from one another by 2 meters, and I truly regret that. I take full responsibility for this. I invited my colleagues there.
My plea is to all Canadians, look what is happening to our beloved Canada. Are you okay with this? Are you okay with what they're doing to, not just to me now, but to you and your children? And I said that so many times for so many years. They came for me, be sure of it. They're going to come for you as well. You didn't care maybe about my children at that time. Now they're after your children. Are you okay with that? Because I'm not. I will keep fighting until the day I die. I hope you will join me. And our government right now is with Satan. Our government has given their soul to the demons, to Satan. For a bowl of soup, for comfort, I don't know what they're doing. But it's not going to be pretty for them. Because in my Bible it says that every man will pay the price. Every man.
It's a repetition of my childhood. Behind the Iron Curtain, we've seen the signs since 2005. We've been warning people that we see the signs of how we grew up under the Soviet boot, where you went to school and you had to sing a song to Stalin. They called him Diedushka Stalin, Grandfather Stalin, where the prayer was removed, where Christianity was persecuted, where righteous people were prosecuted, where people that were patriots were ground to powder. I see the same repetition here, and it's moving very quick, very quick.
You know, I mean, I get it that there's a lot of pressure going on in the world for all kinds of mandates. I think that the Alberta government has let its people down. I think Jason Kenney has backtracked on all the things that he promised he would do or not do. And so that indicates to me that there's external pressure that's sort of directing the hands, if you will.
Well, you know you've reached a new low when they're throwing pastors in jail. My family escaped a communist country where they came here to experience freedom, and now they're being treated this way by the government of Alberta.
It's just a mess. Everything is upside down. What's supposed to be right, it's right now wrong. What's supposed to be white, it's black. So everything is wrong right now. That's as simple as that.
But let me just say this. Whether or not we're being persecuted makes absolutely no difference to me. I don't think that I could care any less about whether or not this meets the definition of persecution. That doesn't even factor into the equation for me. That's not the basis upon which I'm doing anything. I'm doing what I'm doing in obedience to Christ. I am quite content to let the Lord Jesus Christ himself decide whether or not this is persecution. He promises that those who are persecuted for his name's sake will be blessed. He's the one that blesses, and I'm content to leave that in his court. My responsibility is to obey Christ. Correct?
You know, you build a wall. You have to, because otherwise you're going to go crazy. To God all the glory. He's given us the strength to persevere, to continue, because if it wasn't for his work, if it wasn't for his sake, for Christ's sake, we would quit a long time ago. This is bigger than what they even think. This is a call. When you get called by God, you cannot help but to do what God called you to do. So that has kept me sane. You know, it says that in the middle of a storm, God gives his people peace that surpasses all understanding. And I've noticed many times in the middle of a battlefield, he would give the supernatural peace to persevere. In other words, his hand was felt on our shoulder many times, and we know it is him. So, thank God we got tough.
Right now, everything is upside down. We are on the streets for all those years with real criminals in the community. And they are being out of jails because of COVID.
The province declared an outbreak at the facility last May, and it still hasn't been lifted. 577 people, including about 65 staff, have contracted the virus.
And now they're putting Christians and business people to jails because they dare fight for the food on their table, and because they're there. This is our right. We want to worship God, either pandemia or not pandemia, war or not war, peace of war. This is what we are called for. And now my husband is going to be in jail. You know, I don't have words.
Well, it's heartbreaking, of course. I mean, a person whose convictions are so profound. I mean, he doesn't get bullied. He can't be bribed. He can't be bought. His beliefs are his beliefs, and he's not going to be shaken by anything, by no bully tactics. And it just shows that the government is scared for what he has to say, and it also shows that I could be in his shoes as well. I mean, they're treating a pastor this way. How is the government going to treat me?
Well, this rips apart the moral fabric of this country. You know, a country that was established upon the rule of law and the supremacy of God. Those two things need to coexist together. And if we're only one or absent of all things, you know, if we're lawless, if we're godless, this is chaos. There's no moral fabric left anymore. And I think we're going to see for many years the harm that this does.
Yeah, I've no ill will towards our governing authorities, whether that's Jason Kenney, Dina Hinshaw, Tyler Shandro. I certainly disagree with how they have operated, and I think they're operating unjustly. And ultimately, the reason why that I'm not angry towards them is because they stand accountable to God. And it's the same thing in 1 Peter 2 in the scriptures. It reminds us that we are called to suffer, and we're called to follow Jesus' examples. When Jesus suffered, he did not revile in return, he did not hate in return, but rather he prayed for their forgiveness, and he entrusted himself to God, to him who judges justly. And so vengeance is God's, not mine. And so God will judge. And so I want to plead with our leaders who are doing the things they're doing unjustly, that they would repent of their sin, they would put their faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and be saved, because it is his judgment that is scary, not mine.
Very difficult. We're not talking about a year, we're not talking about just since the COVID started, we're talking about 16 years of ongoing, non-stop persecution. I have been arrested for publicly reading Bible, faced a year prison. I was arrested for feeding the homeless people. I save lives, that's what I do on a regular basis. I feed thousands of people regularly on the streets of Calgary. I give hope to those that lost hope, and we had to pay a terrible price for that. I remortgaged my house 7 times. My children, when they were growing up, could not do what other children were doing. I just could not afford it. I was constantly in and out of the court system, over 100 court cases. I spent more time with the lawyers and in court than in the church, believe it or not, of feeding the poor. It was horrible. It was a horror once again. And you gotta remember, I watched this movie before, and if we will not change the script, this movie doesn't end well. And as a family, my parents, my brother, his wife, my children, my wife, we paid a big price for freedom, to fight for the freedom, not just for our freedom, but for the freedom of Canadians.
Very early on in the story of Pastor Artur Pawlowski, we could tell that the scale had shifted. This was a fundamental and historical battle for our freedoms.
So do not pay your fine. Don't do it. Fight your fine. Go to fightthefines.com to get help for yourself or to help others through crowdfunding. This isn't just a pipe dream. We've been preparing for this for 7 months.
Ezra Levant recognized that immediately, and so we launched SaveArtur.com, an extension of the FightTheFines.com campaign. And through that initiative, we enabled Pastor Artur Pawlowski, at no cost to himself, to fight for all of us, and to fight for freedoms that were fundamentally Canadian.
We understand as a family what it means to fight alone. and at the end of the day, you have handful of supporters, and then you are left with those huge bills. And we've been there, we've done that. My husband's first arrest many years ago, we end up with $100,000 bills and more. Those things cost, unfortunately, but the feeling that you are alone. Right now, with backing up of Rebel News, backing up of exposure, because mainstream media are going to lie, of course. They're going to say, oh, this dude, this street controversial preacher, they cannot dare even say pastor. And now we know, it's not even about the feeling, we know we are not alone.
Well, I wanted to thank the Rebel News, because the truth is that in Canada today, you are the only broadcast that is out there, not only giving the entire truth, but you're risking your lives. These are crazy times. This is the times where in a Soviet Poland, people that were showing the truth, they were at risk of even being killed. You know, this is a repetition of history. Same in Nazi Germany. You know, this is where we are, and I wanted to thank you for being there for us. Kian, Adam, Ezra Levan, all of you guys. This is amazing. You know, may God repay you sevenfold, and may He enlarge your territory. And I just want to encourage everybody, please support Rebel News. Please be there for them, because they are showing the other side of the story that this de facto, in my eyes, government, the tyrants, the criminals in government will never allow the mainstream media to show. So please support Rebel News. Thank you so much.
Well, you're the only media outlet that's telling the truth, showing the other side of the story. Every other media source, every other mainstream media source paints him, defames him in this horrible way, painting him and my family as these evil people, when all he wants to do is hold church service, all he wants to do is feed the poor. So I want to thank you, Rebel, that you're the only source of media that's showing that other story.
Yeah, I commend Rebel News for the fightthefines.com, for Save Arthur, for all their involvement in really what's been a true beacon of light in the media world, in the news world. You know, right now, to try and turn on the news and get any kind of thing outside of mainstream media, outside of just the narrative of the day, it's almost impossible. So we thank God for Rebel News and all the good reporters like yourself, Adam, and Kian, and the coverage has been fantastic. Things that would have never been heard have been heard, have been recorded. You know, I like to think of, I think it was Winston Churchill that at the end of World War II, he said, make sure you document everything, because somebody somewhere will try and say that this never happened. And I think we're looking at the same thing right now today.
Well, my wife said that the worst thing is to be alone, to be abandoned, to feel that there's no one that cares, that there's no one that is willing to cover the story the way it is. The good, the bad, and the ugly, fairly. The mainstream media propaganda machinery is hammering me left and right, and they did that since 2005. To them, feeding the homeless, a pastor that feeds the poor is a villain. It's a bad person. To them, someone that stands up for our rights, for the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, for the Constitution, whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law, that kind of a person is a villain, is someone that should be hammered. But thanks to you, we don't feel alone. Thanks to you, Rebel, I don't feel alone. I feel that no matter what those villains will do to me, at least I can count on the Rebel, and they're going to cover the story. So the world will see at least what is happening to me, what is happening to my family, the burning of my house, the trying to murder my children and my wife, and me being hammered and threatened with prison over and over again, with tickets, without mercy. At least I know that whatever happens to me, to us, the world will know what kind of politicians we have in our beloved province of Alberta. Who is really Jason Kenney? Who is this man that hunts down a pastor that feeds thousands of people, of his own people? Who is the Minister of Justice, Madhu? Who are those villains that are doing this to their own people?
Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without a warrant. Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here.
In the church behind me are the steps from which Pastor Artur spoke the words, get out, that reverberated throughout the world. Little did he know how big his story would get, and little did he know how much support he would need from people like you to mount a fight that echoed once again throughout the world. Because of the generosity of thousands of rebel viewers, Pastor Artur was able to take a stand.
This is the hypocrisy of our wonderful, fearless leaders. Where is Naheed Nenshi, the mayor of this city?
The story of Pastor Artur Pawlowski started in many ways right here on these steps. And it ends here as well. With your support, you can stand up. If you believe that Pastor Artur was in the right when he fed those people, was doing the right thing when he opened his church, and was obeying his conscience when he refused to participate in these measures that would fundamentally undermine his constitutional rights as a pastor in this country, the time to stand is now. It's more urgent than ever. We need you to go to saveartur.com and contribute now to help in his legal battle.